we don't quite even have a consolidated V16, I feel like at this point. V17 is the Wild West, and V18 now feels kind of like way out there.
Welcome to the Testpiece podcast. This podcast is about all things high-level climbing. How to go from good to great. I'm your host, Joshua Horsley. I've been climbing for over 30 years. We recently updated our Patreon, and now you get exclusive content from the guests that you love. You get your episodes before everyone else, and they're ad-free. Try it out now at patreon.com/testpiece with a free 7-day trial. Okay, let's start the show. Okay, guys, emergency pod V18 was proposed just days after our last episode. I thought we were going to have a nice, chill Thanksgiving break, but no, we're back for an emergency pod. Didn't even know we had those, but evidently every time someone proposes a brand new grade on the scale, we get together. We are scattered across the world right now, so thanks for making time on the holiday weekend. And I just want to dive right into it because this is emergency. Right after we dropped the last episode, Elias Iagnemma, that's I've never heard his name actually pronounced, so my apologies if I got that wrong, announced he had sent his long-standing project, Exodia, and he proposed the V18 grade. We have never heard this proposed, or at least never in my memory. And that's also 9A plus. So yeah, just totally new territory we're in. We had tons of listeners comment and message us asking us to do an emergency pod. Somehow we pulled this together, and I just wanted to thank you guys for jumping on.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, man. I just want to point out, this is the first legitimate V18 proposal, like at least the first one that people are willing to take seriously. And that means it's by somebody who has, a fairly good track record, has climbed other 9A boulders. Or V17 boulders. And so I think it's important because it's not like, someone can suggest whatever they want for a first ascent. Anybody can, really. But this is kind of the first one I think that the world is willing to take seriously. So
has anyone ever proposed V18 before? Do any of you guys know about it?
Well, I mean, not like publicly, but it's like, what does that really mean? I'm sure somebody put something up and was like, that feels like V18 to me. So it's like, is that a proposal or not? So
wait, didn't Sharma?
Yeah, Sharma proposed V16 or whatever for Mandala back in the day or whatever, but that was also kind of a joke, but maybe not. I don't know. It was kind of an odd one. So
okay, well, before we get into what it means to propose V18 and your guys' opinions, let's just set the stage a little bit. This is in northern Italy. It supposedly breaks down to an 8B plus boulder with a 40-second no hands knee bar and into 8C plus. The name is Exodia in reference to Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I don't know if you guys know that's a cartoon. Used to watch it a little bit. I guess it's
I'll fess up. I know all about it.
Okay, well, I'm glad that we have an expert Exodia person on here to tell us what that is. I thought it was interesting. I don't know. Not going to comment on the grade, but I do want to go into a little bit about who Elias is, since just like you're saying, Carlo, it matters who proposes this. My quick little fact checking online said that it seems like he sent about 3 V16s. One of those was an FA. One of those was Joya. And Afira, I think it was the other one. He's got supposedly 2 V17s under his belt. One was Burn of Dreams. Another was an FA. I think it was called Big Slam. There's some comments about how long it took him that I think are relevant here. I think he said 200 sessions, which is quite a bit. It was also pointed out that Burn of Dreams, he said it took him about 25 sessions. So big delta there on one of the other V17s he did. I'm just going to put out to start out the chat that I personally don't think it matters how many times people tried something for grades. I could try something 1,000,000 times. It could still be V9. And yeah, before we get into Austin, did I miss anything? I feel like you're usually the most up to date on climbing news.
I think that was everything. I think specifically it was 211 sessions is what I remember reading. So Not that 11 more make that big difference, but
It did for him.
it did for him. True. It did for
very
him.
important. Okay, I also just wanted to point out that it was a Christian core project, which is kind of cool, just that it was a known thing. I just think that's relevant because he put up Joya, which I think has landed somewhere in the V15, V16 range, beta brakes, stuff. That was one of the earliest supposed V16. So the fact that it was tried and known beforehand and by at least one top boulderer, adds some credence to the difficulty. So Carlo, I want to toss it to you. What's your initial takes and just thoughts about this big V18 proposal?
I've got some thoughts. It's hard. I've been trying to figure out how to approach this from a not too critical of a standpoint, I guess, I've seen a lot of people propose a lot of things over the years, and I think it's just, it's hard to put it kind of perfectly into perspective. I think my first thought was like, first of all, congrats, obviously, to be that level of a climber, and to put that much time and effort into one thing it's kind of like how the sport kind of moves forward in a lot of ways. And congrats, it's a hell of an achievement regardless of where it ends up on the grade scale. The things that I think about, like calling it a V grade or proposing it, is that you're basically just saying that you think that it's harder than any of the other V17s that are out there. I think that that's a little bit difficult to do when you haven't tried all of them, or at least done a considerable amount of them. So I think it's a little bit suspect in my mind, repeated one of the boulders and then put up your own V17, and then now saying that kind of the next level has been reached. Because as you guys know, and we've talked about this a lot on here, a grade is a consensus amongst the community. And so you're essentially suggesting that this new grade is going to be the consensus for, V18 in the future. And it's not just like, personally, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's also saying that, like, for everybody, this is going to be kind of a new level for the sport. And I think that that's a really difficult thing to say if you haven't at least tried or done a lot of the existing hardest things in the world. Obviously, that's really difficult to do, and I think with Nale's proposal of burden, I was skeptical of that when he proposed V17 for that. Very skeptical, really. And that was coming from Nale, who had gone and repeated almost everything, and put up a lot of things in that upper echelon of like V16. And Nale didn't log a lot of stuff, but he had climbed a lot of boulders, more than probably anybody out there that I've seen. And he was just kind of motoring through everything in like the V15, in under range, and then doing a lot of harder stuff as well. And then putting all of his time and energy into burden. And even with that, I was really skeptical of that being like the next level. And that skepticism just comes from like where I see the consensus finally sitting. With this new V18 grade, I look at the boulder problem. It's a very geometrically complex kind of roof situation, which I've seen in the past. A lot of new beta comes out of those situations that allow for variations and different ways of using beta and just a lot of options. And, I don't disagree that this is definitely the hardest thing that Elias has climbed. Elias, I might be pronouncing it wrong, so apologies, but I don't doubt that it's the hardest thing that he's personally climbed for sure. But to see where that's going to actually sit in the scale is very, very hard to say. And, someone has to suggest it, I will say that it's easier to suggest those things when you've had other people try those boulders. And so I think it's hard for me to know if like anyone else has tried these things. Like when other people have put up 9As and whatnot, it's other strong climbers have tried that stuff with them. They've had kind of sounding boards to work off of. And I haven't heard much about this story in that, he's tried it with some of the top boulderers in the world. And so he doesn't really have a sounding board for new beta, new ideas, new anything, to see if that actually kind of, works with the, with the scale and works with how other people climb as well. And my final kind of point on it is, as one of the top boulderers in the world, you kind of only get one shot at suggesting something like that, in my opinion. In your career, you get a shot at it, because if someone comes along and says, oh, I found better beta and I think it's V16 or V17 or whatever, it's going to be really hard to trust your opinion on reaching that next level from here on out. Like, I think the same would have been true with Nale. If people had come along and quickly done Burden, then I think it would have been much harder for Nale to suggest that next level at that time. And so it's almost like at that top level, you get to use your card once, and I'm not saying 100%, obviously, like you can kind of build up a repertoire from then on out and come back at it and be like, no, actually, I think this is it. And I'm not saying people wouldn't take you seriously to some degree, but you're not going to get the same headlines. You're not going to get the same kind of like pull as you do with this one time. And so my thing is like, we're going to have to wait and see if other people are going to try it, how long they take on it, if new beta is found. There's a lot of factors involved with that, but he used his card. And so we'll see if it plays out. So
good double entendre there. Good points, Carlo. Fascinating, man. Austin, what about you? What do you think of this big V18 proposal?
I feel like I do agree with a lot of what Carlo says. Almost all of it, I would say. The beta, that, like, for example, in the Northeast, there's been the problem of people not as experienced developing boulders. Not saying Elias isn't experienced, obviously, it's just an example. Developing boulders outside and like giving them big numbers, and then right away new beta is found, and like 5 grades get chopped or like 4 grades get chopped within like a session or two of this other person trying it. It's just a new set of glasses, and I think that plays a huge role, because even when I'm climbing with my friends, we all have different ways to do it, and maybe the way that fits you doesn't fit me, and this and that, and my way is easier. So I think climbing on it with other strong climbers plays like a bigger role than anyone knows. And I think Carlo's right when saying that that's a really good way to confirm it more, I guess, which is like, I guess in a way is a little kind of sounds douchey to say, like we're saying, oh, you're not strong enough to confirm it yourself. But I don't think any of us mean it like that. I think we more so mean like, we want to believe you, and it's like, I guess I'm kind of digging myself in a hole here, but we want to believe you, and it's easier for us to believe you when we can believe more than just one person. It's like if 2 people say something, it's more likely it's true than if just one person says it. I think it's cool, like you said, Josh, the fact that he spent 200 days on it, I'm not sure does play into the difficulty as much as some would assume, because he FA'd it. Of course he spent more time on it. He FA'd it. If Burden already had beta, yeah, sure, he found his beta himself with the heel and the double clutch, but he also had a simulator for it. How many days did he spend on the simulator? How many days did he spend on a gym simulator? It all comes into play, and maybe we look at all those days and it's also 200. I was talking to Bryce about the number of days a few days ago, and he mentioned a good point too. Like, Bryce has been trying this project he sent recently for maybe around 8 years. And he was like, I don't even know if I've reached 100 days yet. Like, that would be a lot of days. And Elias has said he's first started trying this in 2021. 200 days in that span of time is like insane when you start thinking about it. It just seems insane. Like, the amount of climbing days you get outside, you'd have to be only going to that thing. But I guess maybe he was only going to that thing based off the rest of his logs. He was probably just hammering away at this one project for 200 days. So that's sick. And 200 days is nothing but respect, no matter what. No matter where it lands, 200 days is like insanely awesome. And putting 200 days in anything is awesome.
Yeah, I like how Carlo said something about that's how our sport progresses. So even if it doesn't end up coming out as V18, the fact that he's willing to put in that time, you need that kind of dedication to align to push the next level. Will, do you want to chime in? Are you in a stable place? You seem to be in like a Swiss prison, you said. So
yeah.
Just wondering if...
Well, yeah. Are you picking up my audio okay here? Okay, I was trying to go to a less echo thing, but then I think I started losing the Wi-Fi, so now I'm back sitting over here. But yeah, I think I was happy to hear Carlo and Austin's takes. I think I agree with pretty much all of that. I think one of the things that was a bummer to me is like kind of how much hate everyone was giving him for proposing V18. And it's like, that is definitely the wrong reaction. I think like we're saying, 200 days, like just to dedicate yourself to something like that over such a long time and to be successful in it. Like, I think that is really fucking cool. And I think that's something we could probably all learn from a little bit, like that kind of dedication is sick. And so like, hell yeah, congrats for the send, like sick to stick with something that long. I'm sure he's so psyched to do it. Like that's nothing but congrats to that. Like that's amazing. As far as the V18 proposal, like, I don't know, maybe. I mean, I'll say what we're all thinking. It seems weird to have a V18 with a no hands knee bar in the middle. And then like to Carlo's point, like you get into these really like 3D cave spaces, and those kind of climbs like oftentimes get kind of re-betaed and might suit somebody more than it suits somebody else. And even on something like Burden, where like you have a pretty flat wall, there kind of are just the hand and footholds that you have. Even Elias, he found his own way through that. So I think like the odds are good that someone will find their own different way through this. And to the extent that they feel like it's V18 or not, I mean, we'll see. But to Carlo's point, yeah, like more people just have to try it. And I think the proposal would have, I think in general, held more weight had he been working it with other people who could somewhat corroborate that. It definitely would have held more weight if he had already climbed a lot more at that level. On one hand, I want to say it's weird to propose V18 when you really haven't climbed very many hard boulder problems, like at the top level. Hard in the sense of like the top echelon of bouldering. He's obviously like a very strong climber, but to have only done like less than a handful of 16s and less than a handful of 17s, some of those being FAs, like, I mean, I've climbed things near my limit that have been 3 V grades lower than technically the highest graded thing I've done. I think one of the things I've spent the most time on was Top Notch in the park. I spent probably 4 or 5 seasons on that, and I climbed, I think, multiple 8B pluses before I did that. And like, I don't think it's not V13. Like, it was just happened to be really, really hard for me. And like, I was psyched to have kind of persevered and learned and finally done that boulder problem. And the grade of it is kind of irrelevant. So yeah, whether this sticks as the first V18 and really does represent a new level in bouldering, I think we can only just find out. But in the meantime, like, congrats, rad send. Like, it sounds brutal. I can't imagine like climbing V16 tired. Because even if you do get a no hands, like 40 seconds is not that long of a rest. Like, you're not fresh after 40 seconds of hanging upside down. You're recovered a lot more than you would be if you had your hands still on the wall, but we'll see.
Quick break to tell you about our Black Friday sale for Patreon. From now until December 1st, you get 25% off. Thank you to all the patrons who help make this show possible. Join them so you can get episodes early before anyone else, and those episodes are ad-free. As a patron, you also get to submit questions for upcoming guests. The answers to those questions are only available to patrons. Follow the link in the show notes to join now. You also get access to a private Discord where you'll find me and other people who want to go from good to great. Okay, back to the pod. Oh man, you guys, good points. All some new stuff too from all the online discourse. Good. I'm glad I got you guys together. I'm glad you guys could make time for the emergency pod. I don't have a ton to add because that was just really good, but I think one of the things that bothers me is, kind of to echo your point, Will, is I can't believe how many people automatically assume it's not legitimate, and also how many people automatically assume it's legitimate because he proposed it. Like, it's not binary, and I don't know if he would say it's totally binary either, where he's like, it's obviously V18, everyone just accept it. So yeah, I don't like that discourse. I love the nuance you guys bring. And some of the stuff I don't like seeing is this idea that it's time for a V18 now. Like this idea that, we had a gap of time period and it's time for V18. Like, that's ridiculous, because also the grading scale isn't really linear. I don't know if I don't want to use math terms on it, but often the way grades work is you just go, this just isn't a V17. It just, it's so clearly the next level. And in fact, like, it's not something, I wouldn't say people go, okay, this is one grade harder because this makes it V15. It's often just like impossible for it to be V14 anymore. Everyone's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel V14. And that's how you get to the next grade. I also want to echo that whole many sessions doesn't correlate with the grade that much. I wish I could say that it took me 4 or 5 seasons to climb only V13 like you will when you're already out there doing a bunch of V14s. But I have put a lot of time into climbs that were very easy but hard for me. And I'm sure we've all had that scenario. I also want to point out that in one of his earlier posts, he said something like, after 4 years and 160 sessions, I finally unlocked the missing sit start move. And he says that part is 8B plus. And so I'm like, does that mean that took him most of the time just to do the V14 part? I don't know. Just wanted to put that out there. I don't think he's really in a place to confidently say what V18 is based on his resume. And I say that as just an armchair expert, but when we look at Nale, like Carla pointed out, amazing tick list. I mean, how many people have a better resume and tick list than Nale right now? Not many. Fred Nicole, when he did Dreamtime, did anyone have a better tick list than Fred Nicole when he proposed V15? I don't think so. I think the good news is that we'll probably find out sooner rather than later, because I think this is just tailor-made for Adamandra. It's got a no-hands knee bar. It's a little bit more of endurance climb. It has a no-hands knee bar. And if anyone can figure out better beta, it's going to be Andre. And also, he probably has the resume. Shouldn't say probably. Definitely has the resume to opine on it a little bit more. So those are just my 2 cents. Before I let you guys go, Carlo, you've been at the top end of the sport for a long time. Grading has gone through some ups and downs, and we'll probably never stop having ups and downs about when people propose things. The grade range expanding, contracting, or actually just, can you comment on the history of grading and how this maybe fits into it?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. The first thing I wanted to say though is, I hope that whoever repeats it is honest with their assessment of the grade, because I think this is a really easy opportunity to just take the grade. And to just be like, oh, I climbed V18 now. Even if like you don't have the resume to back it up or didn't actually feel that way. And I think a lot of people could be in that situation because there's a lot of strong climbers out there that this boulder could fit. And I hope that we don't get like a bunch of people being like, oh, I climbed V18 now. And then a couple people that, finally get a little bit more realistic in the future, or just like, wait a second, guys, cause I think there are boulders that have gone that way. And so I guess my hope is just whoever repeats it approaches it with as fair of a perspective as they possibly can without kind of letting the ego get involved. And that's kind of my hope for everybody approaching all grades all the time. And it's one of those things that I really, really dislike is when people, log something on 8A with the grade, and then say in the comments that they actually think it's a lower grade. It's absolutely infuriating. It's like, if you think it's a lower grade, then give it the lower grade, because that's helping consensus. Writing it in the comments is not the same thing. And so stop doing that. It doesn't help anything. It kind of makes you look like a fool. So just stop doing it. If you think it's a lower grade, then take the lower grade, because that's what you think it is. And so I hope that's the case moving forward. Regards to grade inflation and kind of the cycles of grading, I think these things we'll always see, but I think for a long time, people were pushing that they wanted to see the number kind of reflect the progression. And there was a lot of people pushing for that, and they wanted to see more harder numbers to go along with it. And I see that as an opportunity for inflation. And I think we saw a lot of that. And I think we're still seeing a continuation of that to some degree. Like, we don't quite even have a consolidated V16, I feel like, at this point. V17 is the Wild West, and V18 now feels kind of like way out there, in my opinion. And I think that I would like to see some consolidation happening in the next, few years to kind of help give us a better sense of like where this foundation is for all of these things. And I think that'll be helpful for kind of deciding what progression in bouldering really looks like moving forward. So, I think that if you push things number level too far beyond what the actual progression is, then it's really hard to keep taking the scale and the system seriously. I think it becomes kind of a tower that is, it's kind of easy to have it tip over and fall or just be misunderstood, or people just don't like, if someone's like, oh, I did another boulder and I think it's V19, people are just going to be like, holy shit, man, I don't even know what's going on anymore, and it's like, people aren't going to take these grades seriously anymore. And the grades are a tool for communication. It's how we communicate difficulty. And if that system of communication starts to be, like ineffective because people don't trust it, then you don't really have a way to communicate with the wider world about things. And so I think you got to be careful. You got to be careful, or else we lose that tool.
Carlo, you said that you don't even feel like V16 is fully consolidated, and you were in the era. Are in there. I mean, you just proposed V16. I guess it's been a few years now, but you're on that cutting edge, and I don't know if everyone listening kind of understands that era of V15 and the time it took to jump to V16. Just can you kind of share a little bit about that whole issue with the V15 V16 jump?
Yeah, really, just our generation we thought V15 was like the top, and we had a really hard time pushing into that V16, in my opinion. And I mean, Daniel proposed V16 for the game, and I did it a year later and downgraded it to V15, and so like I might have been.
You're the problem.
Consequential. No, I mean, not like overall, like I don't think one person can affect it in that way, but it does when you've got people that are like, wait a second, I don't quite think this is the case, then it starts to kind of compress everything. And so the V15 range got compressed quite a bit. Like, I do think that there are V15s that are probably outside of the V15 range. Like it seems like Hypno now might be V16, which I think I could probably agree with, especially with the way the scale is now. And that's what I mean by the V16, grade hasn't been consolidated well and hasn't been figured out completely, is because there's V16s that are probably soft, things that got put up later that are probably not. They're probably V15. And then there's old school V15s that might need to be brought up a bit. And I think still in that range, we haven't quite sorted it out. And that's why I think that the V17 grade is even harder to solve right now. And I do think that, as people try more and more of these V17s, I think that V17 exists. I think that there are multiple of them. I don't think it's just one or two. But I do think that there's some of the V17 boulders that are out there that are going to end up at V16, and maybe just on the harder end of that scale. And that's why I do feel pretty skeptical about this V18 proposition. Not that I don't think that this boulder is hard by any means, but I just think that there's a lot of things we haven't solved in that of where things fit in the whole consensus. And I don't think anybody knows, I talked to a lot of people that have climbed a lot of hard boulders about this stuff, and no one knows, but when I hear the younger generation complaining a bit about this V18 proposition, it makes me laugh in a way, because I'm like, you guys kind of wanted this. Like, you guys asked for us to like show this progress in a way, and that's what's happening. You know what I mean? It's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you in a little bit. It's like you were fed for generation or for this previous, 5-10 years by like being able to propose all of these consecutive V16s, V17s for everything, when some of those might not be. And then now when someone comes out with a V18 and they kind of like stepped on your toes proposing that, then now you're going to be a little bit like, whoa, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. And it's like, no, you kind of already ruined it in a way. If you want to see it like that, I don't agree that it's ruining it. I just think that everyone needs to keep a perspective and a balanced perspective as it comes to grades and consensus and whatnot. And I think it's totally okay for someone at that level to propose that, but it's also okay that it might not end up that way. So,
Austin, you're our resident younger generation that speaks for all of them. I definitely grew up in an era where I mean, honestly, a lot of my friends still basically would say like, oh, V16 doesn't even exist. Like I have a lot of friends who would just basically be like, there is no such thing as V16. But you grew up with these grades coming out. And so, yeah, any thoughts about that history of grading and where we are in it now?
I think, like, again, everything Carlo said, I basically agree with, but I definitely fell into the trap of like, progression numbers, blah, 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 right? Like in the Northeast, for the longest time, we were stuck at V13, and we're like in a little box here. And then in my generation, like me, Adam, Isaac, all of us, we were like, oh, let's push this shit. So we tried to push it, and some things we FA'd got downgraded. Some things got down, some didn't, right? Now there's hard climbs here, and we did push it a little bit. People started proposing things, but now everyone around here is like, oh, well, that old V13 better get upgraded to, and we're like, well, no, that, like, you know what I mean? That one's just hard. It's okay. It's a scale. And one thing I wanted to add with the progression of grades and like the V16 grade and everything is, it's funny. You see all these pro climbers go out and smash V15s easily, flash them and everything. And then they kind of just skip right to V17. They never even really play on V16. So we don't like, they don't just go out and smash V16. They don't really like, how often do they even send V16? It seems like V16 takes them just as long as V17 most of the time. So it's almost like the same thing in my head. You know what I mean? It's like if I see someone did a V16, I'm like, oh, that's fucking sick. And when I see someone did a V17, I'm like, oh, that's fucking sick. There's really no difference anymore to me. And I think that's kind of a big problem. And maybe this V18 proposal kind of just makes it a bigger gap. I'm not sure yet. We'll have to wait and see, but that's kind of what my brain was thinking.
Good points. Good points. Will, what about you? You like history, you like climbing history and grades,
well, just to jump right off from Austin's point. I mean, just because V15 has been flashed a couple times doesn't mean that it isn't hard as shit. And like, there aren't going to be V15s at those dudes who at this point, like, yeah, they've flashed one, but like, there's ones that they might have to take years on. That's just climbing. I don't know. Like it doesn't bother me. But it seems to bother people where like, if something takes them too long, like they want the edification of like that number jump. And it's like, man, climbing is like a really broad expression of a lot of different skills and strengths and all of this stuff. And so many things have to come together that, like, the idea that, you know, just because something's hard for you, it has to be another grade. That just doesn't track, I think, with like anyone's real climbing experience who's pushing themselves and pushing grades. Like, I feel like anyone I talk to who actually engages in that process is like, it doesn't phase them. That's just a part of what it is. And the idea that, like we've all been saying, like, just because you put 200 days or however many days, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I've put tons of days into something and then just figured something out and then all of a sudden do it. And it's like, well, the days don't matter anymore. And like, I've flashed at a level that boulders of that same level have taken me seasons to do. And that's totally normal and okay and like totally fine. And again, like echoing, I think Carlo's little monologue there, put that in a picture frame. That was perfect. Like,
Thanks,
that's just, yeah, that's just what it is. Like, that's what's been happening. And it's on some level, it's crazy to me that like people don't get this, like don't understand like the way that this works. It's not football.
It's hard to get it though, you know, like you kind of got to be in it and go through the cycle. Like, I feel like I've been in that washing machine, you know what I mean, for 20 years of like trying to understand this. And I think that once you kind of get spit out the other end, which I still feel like I have questions about it, but I have a pretty good understanding of like how it works and like why it is the way that it is. And it's not perfect by any means. I don't think it can be perfect. And I think it's not easy to always conceptualize, but I do feel like I have a fairly decent understanding of like what it is nowadays, you know? And I think that it's very different from what I thought it was even 10 years ago, you know? And I hope that I keep understanding it better and better, but I've just been trying to like help communicate that understanding as best as I can, but also like make sure that people aren't wrapped up in it too much. And that's why I do think grades, I mean, they're helpful as a communication tool, but they're not everything, you know? And I think people put too much into it being everything in terms of their progression, in terms of their practice, in terms of their mastery. And it, like, as you guys have all said, some of the most time I've spent on some boulders is like, I mean, Dominator was one of them, which is like 12 or 13. I spent triple the amount of days of anything else. Like I've climbed V16 in like 3 or 4 days with Creature. And then that one I've put like 100 days into. The time doesn't add up, you know, but that's not that you don't spend the time to do it, you know, and that doesn't mean that it's a different grade. It's just that it's hard for you. And so, yeah, it's the same, you know, same thing with flashes, you know, it's like sometimes I've like almost flash boulders and then taken 5 days to finish them, you know, it's like, and that's why it's kind of like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's hard to say if you flashed it, that's awesome. And that's amazing, you know, but getting close to a flash is a totally different deal. So.
And maybe we can get deeper into it on another pod, because I would love to talk more about this, but like grades, like I talk a lot about grades and I really like it conceptually. But to your point, Carlo, like it's not perfect. And I don't think it can be perfect. I like to talk about it just because it is so weird. And it's just an interesting topic to me, because I think the way a lot of what people, the way they kind of engage with grades, how they think about them and apply them to their own climbing tells me a lot about that person. And it's just interesting the way that people use that tool for themselves. But in a lot of ways, like it's the worst part about climbing. At a lot of levels, it takes so much out of like what is such an amazing activity and experience. And but at the same time, I don't think we can get rid of them. And so again, like I think, and that clash is really fascinating to me, and a part of why I like talking about it so much, because I think at its core, like at least at this point, grades are a discussion. Like we're just talking. It's not that things are discretely these numbers that we're applying to them, and stuff shifts. Grades are always either inflating or compressing. They're never stable and true. And so I think it's a fascinating topic, but I don't want people to misunderstand, like certainly how much I talk about grades, or I think just how much climbers talk about grades. Like it can seem like that is just really this core part of like what climbing is. And really it's, at least for me, like it's totally not. It is a cool conversation piece. It's a way to communicate. It's a way to understand what people may or may not be doing on the other side of the world. It can help you like plan a trip, or, you know if it's worth traveling to something to try. But like ultimately, I just wish people would maybe take the grade, like just knock it down a couple of notches. Like, is the boulder beautiful? Like, are you psyched on it? Do you enjoy the moves? Are you having fun? Like, is it something you want to invest yourself into? And then like maybe talk about the grade after.
Totally agree with that, Will. Totally agree. It's one of the reasons too, I really like the, like not for everything, but I've always liked the B3 scale, which is like the old bouldering, like the John Gill scale. I think he's the one that came up with it, where like B3 was a boulder that had been done, but not repeated. And then once it got repeated, it got dropped down to B2 basically. And I always thought that was cool. And it kind of coincides a bit with what I find interesting about boulders. Like I found that burden got more interesting to me and more alluring as a hard boulder problem when I saw all these strong people going there and not doing it. And that built it up. Like initially I was just like, okay, cool. Like hard boulder. It took Nolly a long time. Great. That's awesome. Like sick for sure. And I was like, but maybe one of these really strong kids that's really good at that board style of climbing could just go out there and shit on it. And we didn't see that. Like I saw people that I was like, these people are incredible at that flat wall, small hold style. And then just spending weeks in Finland beating their head against the wall and not doing it. And it kind of built up burden's status over the years by that happening. And so with this, V18 suggestion, that's kind of what I mean by we'll wait and see. Like if there's strong people, like if no one goes and tries it, or people go there and they're like, I just don't like the boulder, I'm not going to try it. then that kind of lowers the status, in my opinion, where you're just like, okay, it may be hard, but no one's really wanting to try it. So what's really the point, you know? But if someone goes and is really strong and capable and puts a ton of time into it and doesn't do it, then I do think that status starts to elevate in terms of physical difficulty. And it coincides a lot with my personal climbing later on in my life here, where like I've really tried to go after things that were a little bit more mysterious, things that, like with Flex Luther, I tried that because it had been tried a lot by a lot of people, and they kind of said that holds had broken off. It was no longer possible. They don't even know what Tommy did on it. No one had even gotten to the anchors before John Cardwell and I had gotten onto it like 10 years ago, you know, and finally found a way to the anchors, you know? And so it was almost like this mysterious level of difficulty was like alluring, in that like a lot of strong people had tried something and couldn't quite figure it out. And regardless of the grade, I've always found that to be a little bit more interesting. So
you guys, we got to start wrapping. I'm just going to, one thing I want to bookmark for us to tackle on another podcast is this idea of these climbs getting longer and longer as the grade gets harder. And I think that there's something I miss about just pure hard boulders. But the caveat to that someone pointed out to me is that if you take bouldering down to a single move and then you try to give it some grade, you enter morphology even more into the equation. You have someone come along that just is like, this move is really easy because it fits me perfectly. So I don't know, just wanted to bookmark that for a later chat. And how I want to close it out is just saying, Austin, do you think it's V18? And if so, or if not, what would confirm to you that it is that grade? Like, who has to come along and repeat it, or who has to try it, or how does that work, just so that you would feel confident either saying it's V18 or not?
I feel like it could be V18. I think I want to leave with that. It could be, for sure. It's hard for me to imagine V18 right now. It's hard for me to believe it as it is. It sucks to say, but I think if Andre went and tried it, or these other people, right, that are super capable went and tried it and didn't do it, or did it and confirmed it, it would be a lot more believable. And it sucks to say because I'm sure Elias is an extremely capable climber, and I'm sure this boulder is extremely hard. It could be the hardest boulder in the world, which is still awesome. It totally could be. But yeah, that's my take. I think it could be. I don't believe it right this second, but I want to believe it.
I want to believe. Okay. Well, what needs to happen for you to feel that grade has been confirmed?
I mean, the people who've done the most 16s and 17s would have to not do it, or either do it and agree that it was truly like represented a new level in what was possible.
Carlo, same to you.
I kind of feel similarly as you guys. I mean, I hope it is. I think that'd be cool. I'm skeptical by the things that I kind of outlined. I think right now I don't believe it, you know, but I would like to get there, you know, and I hope that there's enough evidence that convinces me of that in the future, you know, like I guess I don't believe that it is at this point, because I don't think that there's enough information to lead me to believe that, you know, but I think it's a great suggestion, and I think it's it's definitely worthy of that, you know, potentially. I think it has potential to be, for sure, obviously.
That's a good way to put it.
So I hope it is. I think it'd be cool, you know?
Yeah.
And I do want to say, no matter what, like I said, 200 days, fucking insane. And we shit on it a lot this podcast, but like, I'd be so proud of that's awesome. Like, good fucking job.
No, respect.
Yeah.
Respect.
I wish he chose a different name. I'm not a fan of bringing Yu-Gi-Oh. I watched the show. It seemed like, it was a fun show, but I don't know. Somehow I don't like that going into climbing. Could have been a cooler name. Sorry.
People name boulders the dumbest shit.
I don't like the one word names of boulders. I loved when I thought like Hypnotized Minds was way better than the game or the process. Like, I don't know. I want a little more. I miss Dave Graham name's good
Dave
boulder.
Graham's,
that guy knows how to name. Okay. My little 2 cents is I don't know to believe it or not. Like I said before, I don't want to call it out as definitely V18 or definitely not 18. Time will tell. For me, I've looked at Burden and how long it took for it to be confirmed. And it wasn't just one person going and doing it. So I want to see Alamandra try it. I want to see Noah Wheeler try it, who's got that different style than that may suggest. I want to see Jakob Schubert go out there. I want to see a lot of people at the top level. It just seems like it's going to need more than just even Almondra going out there and opining it. Because in fact, I don't know, Almondra is not maybe the most accomplished boulderer out there right now, but I'm sure. Well, one thing I love about Alm is I think he is honest. So it'd be great to hear his take. And I just know he's going to go out there. I just watched his video, and he said in the video, "Oh, I'll probably never climb 9A plus, and I'll never do this." And I was like, this video must have been made right before this news was dropped. Dude, isn't that tailor made for Almondra? And actually, it's interesting that you guys were saying how people have to actually want to go out and try it. And it was funny because silence kind of sat for a while as like something people didn't want to try. They're like, I'm going to shove my fucking foot into a crack, you guys. Like, and now it's starting to, it takes time. So, okay, you guys, that was fun. I'm glad that we were able to get together. I'm also just appreciative that the world wanted to hear your guys' takes, but after getting to hear them now, I can see why. Loved it. Really interesting. Great insight. And yeah, congrats again, Elias. Good job.
Yeah, good job. That's sick.
All right, guys. Carlo, go climb. You're in the valley. Will, go get out of prison. You're somewhere in Europe.
I've got a flight early in the morning.
It is early in the morning. What are you talking about?
Early in my morning. You guys are behind, dude. I already lived that day.
Is V19 exist in your end of the world now already? All right, guys. Thanks for the emergency pod. Thanks for hopping on. See you again soon.
Peace.
Bye. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/Testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.